let's get into this manager discussion because I think a lot of us overlook this spot in the organization now, especially since analytics have become so prevalent. I think most people just assume that the manager does nothing nowadays and it's all numbers, but to me, that could not be further from the truth. So today we are starting out with our favorite manager in the MLB, and I'm going to you, Taylor. Tell me who it is. Who's your favorite manager in MLB right now?
This is the easiest answer I've ever had to give, Matt. It's Bochy. It's Bruce Bochy, man. How could it not be? I know he was going to be your favorite too, probably. I'm swooping in and taking him because he's the man. And Matt, I don't know if you remember, but there was actually Showtime did like this follow doc series on the Giants in 2011 after they won the 2010 World Series. It was called The Franchise, and it gave a ton of insight into how that clubhouse works. And there was this scene after spring training where Bochy gets to tell Brandon Belt that he made the big league team out of spring camp, and Belt is just like overcome with emotions. He starts crying. He doesn't know if he's supposed to like leave Bochy's office at that point. And so he's just kind of standing by the door and he's like pacing and like he's crying and he's so emotional. And he clearly doesn't want to like go out in front of the other players in that state. And it's my favorite part of the whole series because Bochy is just like, man, you could stay in here and just hang out with me if you want. Just grab a beer out of the fridge. This is a big moment for you. Like, just hang out. And the tone that Bochy uses in that moment, it simultaneously conveys to Belt, like, hey, dude, it's okay to cry. This is normal. This isn't the first time a guy has cried in my office, but also, like, this is a big moment for you. And you should, like, sit down and enjoy it and soak it all in. And so Brandon Belt just ends up doing that. He's just sitting on Bochy's couch, kind of just crying, and Bochy's just there for him. And it's moments like that to me, I think separate a good manager from a great manager, because we can look at all sorts of numbers that don't really mean much for managers. Like there are so many statistics for players, and that's why this episode is hard for me, because that's the first thing I jump to. And with managers, those numbers are really complicated, and there's a lot more variance built into them, and like they kind of don't even matter because every team has a different objective. Like some teams are more focused on development right now. Like not every team is trying to win every given game, depending on where you're at in the season. So it's tough to judge managers, and especially now because so many of the decisions aren't even up to managers anymore because of all the game scripting that goes on from the analytics department. So the position's also changed a bunch, which makes it really hard to evaluate. And, I look at a guy like our guy, Aaron Boone, and I don't always know if the decisions he's making, like, I don't know if those are coming down from somebody else or if those are based on like in-game observations or something the analytics department outlined for him. So to an extent, the manager position now is almost like the node that connects sort of all these other departments and has to like bring balance to everything. And, there's no better example of that than Bochy, because the Rangers, I mean, when they brought it back, they were basically like, hey man, like like you're managing, like we're not going to tell you anything. Like this is your team, you're going to manage it. Of course, he comes out and does what he does and wins a championship because he's a leader and the players respect the hell out of him. And he's just had these undeniable results over his entire career. Obviously he won rings with the Giants 2010, 2012, 2014, soft retires in 2019, only to come back and win. He is one of only 3 managers to win a World Series in both leagues, one of only 5 to win a World Series with multiple teams. He's the first manager in history to lead 3 different teams to a World Series. He's the only manager in history to win the title with the team he previously beat in the World Series, since the Giants beat the Rangers in 2010. And he's 10th among managers all time in wins with 2,093. And now that's first among active managers since Dusty Baker's retired. And Bochy's got a .606 winning percentage in the playoffs, so it's undeniable there as well. His first manager gig with the Padres organization in 1989, he was down in A-ball with the Spokane Indians. This is his first managerial gig. He leads them to the championship. Then in 1991, they promote him to High A, to Desert Mavericks in the California League, wins the California League title. Then the next year, they bump him up to Double A, Wichita Wranglers, leads them to a Texas League title. The dude just wins. And then they bring him up to the Padres, and a few years into his career, he wins a pennant and he's in the World Series again with the Padres. So like this dude is just a masterclass in how to win baseball games. And this year you also got to see a masterclass in how to manage a pitching staff and a bullpen in this World Series. Because that game 5, he leaves in big game Nate Eovaldi just long enough, and they work out at every jam just in time. And then he even brings in Chapman in a 1-run game, only lets him face 3 hitters, which is a really smart move because it limits the potential for Chapman to just be walking everybody. And then he brings in Spores, who is probably his most reliable bullpen arm, gets him to the 9th, and he's like, hey, he sees Spores is dealing. He's like, finish this off, man. Like, get this done for us. And so he has Sproles pitch 2 1/3. He just knows how to get the respect from his players, and he gets the best performance out of them as a result. To look at what Marcus Semien and Corey Seager said about him after the World Series. They asked Marcus Semien what Bochy meant to the team through the playoff run, and he just said everything. Everything. Yeah. That's what Bochy meant to them. And then Corey Seager piles on top of that, and he says what he's done for this team and for this group, it's unbelievable. So it's hard to know sometimes what players actually think of a manager, because, you know, in the course of a season, you're never going to hear a player say anything bad about the manager when they're on their team. But you can also tell when players do have that genuine respect and love for their manager. And it's obvious that everyone on the Rangers did for Bochy after one season. And that's just been the case over his entire career. And that's why he is the obvious choice for my favorite manager.
It's 100% obvious. And what makes really great people really great is the ability to get the most out of the people around them. And Bochy, like you said, Bochy does that everywhere. Like, it's ridiculous how every single place that he goes, they have success. And Taylor, you saw my reaction at the beginning. Thanks for absolutely snaking Bochy from me, because he's my favorite as well. Okay, first of all, because
to be fair, I would have taken Tito if we were having this conversation this time last year. But he is unfortunately retired. Fortunately for him, because that dude had about every health problem you could have without just being dead, and he just needs some rest. So I'm very happy for him, because he just needs to just chill out,
sleep. Yeah, go and watch.
Sleep, hydrate. Go fish.
Watch some baseball like us. Watch some baseball like us. Yeah. Be a fan. Don't worry about having to manage. He was definitely not in the best state of I was going to say state of mind, but state of body at the end of his tenure. But yeah, like you said, Tito's obviously was great, but I mean, it's Bochy for me. I mean, first of all, because he just managed the Rangers to a World Series win, but almost as notably led the Rangers to an Astros ALCS defeat. So nice job. Appreciate you looking out, Bochy. Thank you. But also, again, we've seen it for years now. And there's certain guys in sports, whether it be players, coaches, or front office, that just find a way to bring the best out of everyone around them, have a way of giving everyone else confidence in them and making everyone else believe what they are messaging and what they are preaching is to be true. And that's Bruce Bochy to a T. He's a great leader. The guys always believe in him. He always believes in his guys too. And he's so calm in all of these situations. It radiates to the entire ball club. Like, his calmness makes everyone else calm in these big moments, and it's why his team in these big moments always seem to come through. He deserves so much credit for that. That's why right now he's the best manager in baseball, and I don't even think it's a conversation. He is a top 5 manager of all time. He is one of the 5 greatest managers in MLB history. He is that special because his teams haven't been the most talented teams. Obviously, there's still a lot of great players on the teams that he's been on, but none of the teams that I would say he's managed would have been the most talented team at the league at that given time where he had them, and they still won championships. He's got 4 World Series with some of teams that aren't the most talented in baseball. I think that's remarkable. He's top 5 all time. But since Taylor snaked him from me, I'm going to go with someone else that has shown a lot of the same traits. And that's Rob Thompson, okay? He was supposed to be an interim manager. He took over for Joe Girardi in the 2022 season after the talented Phillies started off 22-99. And Taylor, like you mentioned, when a great manager comes in, he can just come into the locker room and flip a switch, change the culture, and he really gelled with those guys in that locker room. Again, he gave them belief. From that point on, they went 65-46, snuck in as the last NL wildcard. Then they went on the road for the whole playoffs. Obviously, they made their way to the World Series, lost in 6 to Houston. But again, they were the only team to beat the Astros in the playoffs that year in a single game, and they beat them twice. So then obviously last year, Harper starts out with the Tommy John surgery to start off the year. Hoskins tears his ACL and is out. Trey Turner was dreadful to start off the year. And again, they find themselves in the NLCS, where granted they didn't come through in Game 6 or Game 7 at home. You can call that a choke. It most definitely could be. But the fact they were even there is a testament to how he can get the most out of his guys. What makes a great manager is if you can perform and get the best out of your team in adverse circumstances. It's not always going to be perfect. Your team's not always going to be whole. We saw it last year with the Rangers. Adolis Garcia goes out in the World Series. We saw Scherzer go out. They had tons of adversity in that playoffs. And again, they overcame it time after time after time. And that's what great managers do. That's what Bochy did for the Rangers, and that's what Rob Thompson has done for the Philadelphia Phillies. So again, he has a very talented roster, no doubt about it. But again, I don't even think it's the most talented roster in his own division, but that hasn't stopped him from going 6-1 in the NLDS versus the Braves, which is the more talented NL East team in the division. So, and again, to me, he helps get his guys to the point where, especially for the Braves, like they're in the Braves dome, like that you can see mentally they're on a different level. And you could see, obviously you saw the Braves were cooked psychologically. And I think Rob Thompson instilling that confidence in his team is a big reason for that. So I really like Rob Thompson, him coming in mid-season, taking over for a World Series champion manager in Joe Girardi, then making the team even better. I think that speaks a lot to how good he really is.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's why he's in the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame, after all.
Boom.
Don't know if you knew that or not. But, and yeah,
most prestigious Hall of Fame.
In Canada, it is for baseball. For if you're a Canadian baseball player, that's the pinnacle.
That's the one. That's the one.
Matt Stairs also in the
shout out to Matt Stairs
Hall of Fame. I also want to give a shout out to some honorable mentions for my favorite manager as well. Torey Lovullo.
Yes, he's got to be in there.
He actually gives off some Tito vibes for me. And I feel like I gotta add Aaron Boone to this list, which, you know, is a little biased. I'm a Yankees fan, but I do feel like he generally walks that line pretty well between being honest with the media and trying to give fans insight into what's actually going on while also not revealing too much information. And he just like is one of those guys that sticks up for his guys. He was tied for the most ejections in 2023 with 7 with David Bell. And some of those ejections obviously are just absolutely legendary.
Amazing.
And he also did a great job with a cameo that I got for you for your birthday a few years ago. And I really appreciated that from him. So he's also on my honorable mentions list.
That's a good point, Taylor. I was going to push back a little bit just because, you know, we haven't seen the postseason results that we wanted.
Yeah.
And last year went so bad. I don't blame Boone for last year, but yeah, that cameo was sick. He did a great job with the cameo. So shout out to Aaron Boone for getting me a birthday cameo. You're the man, dude.